Good evening, Hamlet Middle School, or good morning, whenever you're watching this. This is a video in response to the question of the week, which started last week. And I thought doing a question of the week for students to answer would be a fun way for student engagement with the school that is a little more open ended, and it gives you a little bit of uh, opportunity to share your voice about different situations. Now, right now, as of right now, I am sort of like making up the questions as I go, depending on different things that are going on in the building. However, if you have a suggestion for a question that should be asked of the whole building, please email me a suggestion and maybe it'll make it on for a question of the week, which I hope to do throughout the year. I can't guarantee it'll be every single week, but we'll see what happens. So the first question that we did was, what one school rule would you want to change and why? So several of you responded over the week. A little more. Oh, I hear my son coming down who has no shirt on. That's my son, Lincoln. Hi. Yeah, that's him. So several of you responded, and you got a lot of different answers. And what I decided to do was kind of combine them all into related groups. So I'm going to go over the list. For those of you that heard me talk about my 8th grade son, Lincoln, that was him. So I broke them down into different groups. Now, I'm not going to go over each group because it would take me really long. And a lot of you know how much I like to talk. So I want to go over the top 5 because several of the other categories only involved a handful of students or maybe only one. But the top 5 responses were related to, and I'm going to go in reverse order for the top 5, so I'll get to the one that is the most at the end. So the first one, where there was a decent response, or 4.65% of you, because it jumps up pretty high after that, was the fact that you do not want homework. And you said in a very, very colorful way that you do not like homework and you wish that was a rule that went away. So just so you know, there isn't a mandatory homework rule. So I think you want to invent a rule that says you don't have to have homework. So really what you want to do is kind of debate whether or not you actually want to make a rule and then submit it for approval. Now, however, the rules really are made up in conjunction with the school leaders, with the district and other schools, and they come up with the handbook. So if you really want to suggest a rule and do it formally, you would probably have to make a proposal as to what the rule is and then actually present it at a school committee meeting. But it's a good idea probably to submit it to someone like Miss Esposito, Miss Renegaldo first to see if it's something that would be feasible. If you feel strongly about something, you always have a way to kind of get your voice heard. So the no homework rule, really that goes by teacher, because it really isn't an official rule. Now we have, I think, guidelines for our homework policy, but that one I don't think really exists. I'll double check on that one. The second one, or the one that ranks 4th in the most responses, was to allow backpacks. So some of you do carry quite a bit with you. Unfortunately, backpacks will very likely not be able to change because of the fact that it becomes a safety issue in terms of, well, it's a space issue and a safety issue and convenience issue. One, if everyone carry the backpacks with them, with everything with them, it could be problematic in the classroom in terms of space. 2, sometimes some students make choices of bringing stuff to school that shouldn't be with them and they keep them in the backpack. And having students put their backpacks in a locker helps to mitigate any potential issue that would arise with having things you shouldn't have in your backpack. So I don't know if that change anytime soon, but if you have a strong argument for it, I would recommend that you try to present that. All right, now we're going to get to the ones that had the really high responses. And with 23% of you responding, you would like the rule about hats and hoodies to be changed to allow for it. So this really has to do with more of a safety issue in regards to protocols for keeping the building safe when it comes to intruders, people who should not be in the building, and identifying those people quickly. And I know teachers, some classrooms allow hoods to be worn in the classroom. Um, if that's the case in your particular classroom, that's fine. But, it is a pretty hard rule, hard, fast rule, meaning in other areas of the building, it's absolutely not allowed. Now, our policy is absolutely no hoods and hats in school. It's a district-wide policy, not just a school policy. So it may potentially get to a point where we have to enforce it everywhere in the building. We're hoping that students abide by it, especially in the common areas, cafeteria, hallways, things like that. Anywhere outside of the classroom that doesn't allow it, the teachers have discretion to let you use it. So, as long as students aren't continuously abusing it and taking advantage of it, hopefully that won't be an issue that we have to deal where we have to actually enforce it while you're in the classroom. As I tell you folks, it's, this is a lot of work for us. We don't want to have to address you about these kinds of things, but because it has to do with identification of people who shouldn't be in the building. And that might sound kind of silly, but when things are happening in the building, as many of you know, it happens really fast, and we have to be able to see faces at all times. So that one I don't think will change. Unfortunately, the next one, also a big number, a third of you, just under a third, 30% of you responded saying that you want the cell phone policy change, where you should be able to use your cell phone various ways in terms of having it on you, using it when you're not working on something, or use it whenever you want. Unfortunately, we deal with a lot of issues that involve the cell phone. Actually, most of the incidences that we have in the building either are directly or indirectly related to how many of you use your cell phone during the day, texting each other, messaging each other when things are about to happen, or like that. And that becomes a big safety issue in itself. And some of you shared very thoughtfully that you're concerned about an emergency actually happening in the building. Officer Valino explained this during the ALICE training presentation they did last month, that it's been proven that cell phones can actually be more of a hindrance during an emergency situation, because when something's happening in the building, there's certain protocols that we follow where if students are focused on calling during those emergencies, it become more dangerous, because one, you might be talking when you shouldn't be, and that could lead to you become the focus of something. You could be calling people to come and help, but as Officer Valino explained, if you're calling your families and they're trying to get to the school, well, then that's going to draw resources like other officers who are outside the building trying to keep people away. And he clearly explained that you're potentially bringing more people to a dangerous situation. And realistically, what would happen if we really had an emergency in the building? Your parents would be notified fairly quickly, and it'll actually work out faster and safer for everyone if we weren't focused on making phone calls during a lockdown or evacuation or whatever emergency was happening. You will have enough opportunity when it's safe enough to make calls. So I don't think the cell phone rule will change. However, present your case. And then finally, the one that had the most responses was dress code. All right. Now, this may also, some of you shared it kind of combined with hats and hoodies. So the dress code is probably our least favorite thing to have to address, because it does get complicated. We don't like having to enforce it. However, again, there are students who take very extreme liberties with the dress code, or there are situations where it becomes a safety issue, like students bringing in blankets or wearing a winter jacket during the middle of the day. Um, or if it's clothes that are not fit properly, where it becomes more of a distraction than anything else. And it's pretty uniform between boys and girls. I believe the dress code policy is the same for both boys and girls. So it's complicated. I would say the biggest argument that I read in the responses had to do with pajamas. So, right now it's written in our policy that pajama pants are not allowed. And different schools in the state have different policies regarding that. And there's pretty solid arguments for it and against it. Um, I'm not going to share my opinion about pajama pants because in the building we have a policy that we have to enforce it. And so it doesn't really matter. So if you're a person who likes to wear pajama pants, realize that you may get a referral for it, and then we have to address it at that point. So if you feel like pajama pants are an appropriate form of clothing for school, there have been students in districts present that to the school committee as a potential rule change, and some of them have gotten it through, and some districts allow pajama pants, and there's different arguments for and against. Some of you wrote, not some of you, one of you wrote that you were told that pajamas were not allowed because of bed bugs. I that would be the same case for any type of clothing. So I'm not sure who may have told you that, if it was someone in the building or outside, but bed bugs don't care about the type of clothing. So if you have bed bugs, it's not gonna matter whether it's pajamas or jeans or shorts or a shirt, jacket, whatever. So it has nothing. I don't think it really has anything to do with bed bugs. So those are the top 5: homework, backpacks, hoodies, hats, cell phones, and dress code. And I hope I was able to give you some clarity as to why those are either rules, or if you really feel strongly and you want to actually try to make a change with this, you do have an outlet to do so. So some of the other ones, one of you said you want running in the hallways allowed. One of you mentioned that you want swearing allowed. Another person mentioned that they want to be able to talk about fights that are happening. Another one was they want to allow the gambling of candy. One of you thoughtfully, actually, I would say this, thoughtfully wants to change the e-pass timing of 5 minutes into class and then 7 minutes before. That actually has to do with making sure that the bathrooms are closed sufficiently, and also the teachers who are covering the bathroom can get to their next class in a timely fashion. So, part of that is just making sure that students are done with the bathrooms. They can be closed, and the teachers can get to their class for that next coverage, because covering that bathroom requires time for the teachers who are there to go to the next class, and the teachers who are covering that area to get there and get set up. So that's why that is actually those amount of times. So that's very likely not to change. We could probably tweak it maybe a minute one way or the other, but I don't see that changing. Enforcing the no swearing, name calling better. Only one person mentioned this, but I will say that that's something we have been actively focused on, and I think it's gotten better over last year. How we talk, I tell you guys all the time, how we talk to each other is everything in the building. If we were a little more thoughtful, patient, and kind in the building, I think some of the problems that we have would go away pretty quickly. Another person mentioned they want Halloween off. Another person mentioned want longer lunches. I think everyone could agree that we all want longer lunches. This schedule is really tough to make, and it's really hard to allow for longer lunches, unfortunately. I would love longer lunches. One of you mentioned that you want more respectful teachers, and I think that may be a future question. So I'm not going to talk about that one right now. I think that would be a great conversation in the future. And then also one person mentioned they want earbuds allowed in the hallways. so you can listen. So you can listen. Oh, hold on. Hold on. All right. So I think we're working. Are we working? All right, I think we're working. All right, sorry, my headset turned off on me. All right, so sorry, my kids are arguing upstairs. That's fun. All right, so yeah, that's probably not going to happen. Earbuds in the hallways. So be careful because our technology policy actually says that we are allowed to confiscate your electronics, and if you're a repeat offender, you can keep the electronics for 1, 3, 5, or up to 10 days, depending on the infraction. We don't usually go that route because um, we don't want to hold your expensive equipment. So, just so you know, in our district policy, we can confiscate and not have to return it for those amount of times. And usually we return it to your family. I don't want to have to deal with that. So, yeah, earpods will not be formally allowed in the hallways or pretty much anywhere except for the classroom when teachers allow it. All right, that went on for a long time. I hope if you're not bored to death and asleep by now, that you enjoyed the feedback from the answers that you gave for that question. So look forward to looking at the answers for uh, this week's question of what school activity before or after school should be offered for middle school students. So look forward to seeing your responses to that. All right. Have a great night or day or whatever.